All right, so learn target 2. So number 7, I'm actually not going to do just to save some time. Just know that you have to write these out, opposite of hypotenuse, etc., etc., and know that tangent and cotangent are reciprocal, sine and cosecant, and cosine and secant are reciprocal from each other. So let's do number 8. So here we want to do all star trig class. And remember, these are where these functions are positive. So here it tells me cosine is positive. So I'm going to look here for positive here, and then everything's positive in 1, so that's where the 2 places that cosine is positive. And cotangent is negative. I look at where tan is. Tan is negative here. And here, and they overlap right there, so that's going to be quadrant 4. Part B. So tan is negative, so I'm going to look at these 2 quadrants here where tan is negative, and sine is positive here and here, they overlap in quadrant 2. This one is cotangent is positive, or tangent is positive here and here. Cosecant, which is the reciprocal of sine, is negative in quadrants 3 and 4, therefore they overlap in quadrant 3. Okay, next page. So draw the following angles in standard position and state the reference angle. So this is 4 pi over 4, which means this is 2 pi over 4, this is 6, 8, 10, 12. So 11 pi over 4 is going to be here, and it's actually right in the middle. So we draw it, don't forget to draw it right correct way around, it's positive, so it goes counterclockwise. And then the angle that is left is what we're looking for, that makes with this angle with the x-axis, and this is pi over 4. This next one, we're doing over 6, this is 6 pi over 6, which makes that 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. And we need to do 23, so it's going to be 1 back. So we're going to go, remember it's clockwise still, or sorry, counterclockwise, and we're looking for the angle that's left over, which is going to be pi over 6. Okay, number 10. So find the exact value of each of the remaining trig functions. So tangent is going to be opposite over adjacent, or y over r, however you want to think about it. It tells us that it's in quadrant 4, so I don't even have to worry about which quadrant it's supposed to be in. I know that this is opposite and adjacent. So opposite is 3, adjacent is 4. The overall answer is negative, which has to be applied to the 3. And then we do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's going to be 16 plus 9 equals c squared. Add them together, you get 25. Square root gives me 5. So x is positive 4, y is negative 3, and r is always positive, which is 5. And we're just going to pull each of these and put them into our ratios. So that means we have negative 3/5. We have 4 over 5, 5/4, 5 over negative 3 or negative 5 over 3, doesn't matter. And negative 4/3 or 4 over negative 3. All right, 11. So we have 540 is the angle we're dealing with. So let's draw this out. 540, well, we have 180 degrees here. This is 360. I add 90 and I get 450. I add another 90 and I get 540. So it's actually a quadrantal angle, and it ends here. And it goes around 1 and a bit. So this coordinate point is negative 1, 0. So that tells me that x is negative 1, y is 0, r is always positive, and in these quadrantal angles it's always 1. So cosine, remember, theta is x over r, and tan theta is y over x. So to find cosine of 540 degrees, it's going to be negative 1, because it's negative 1 over positive 1. And then tan of 540 degrees is y, which is 0 over negative 1. Don't care about the negative 1. So look at the calculation here. We're doing, excuse me, negative 1 minus 0, which just gives us negative 1. Okay, next one. This is going to be 2 pi over 3. So we draw that out. This is 3 pi over 3. So that ends up in quadrant 2, right here. So the triangle that I'm looking at is 60, because it's pi over 3 that's left. And make sure we set this up right. This is a 2, a 1, and a root 3. And that is also negative 1, so x is negative 1, y is root 3, and r is positive 2 in this case. So we're going to do sine. Sine theta is y over r. So sine of 2 pi over 3 is y, which is root 3, over r, which is 2. And cosine of 2 pi over 3, is x over r. I forgot to write that. And that gives me negative 1 over 2. And then we just put those together. We're doing this one, subtract this one, sine minus cosine. So root 3 over 2 minus 1/2. We can't simplify it, so that's your final answer. Okay, last page. Same idea here. 3 pi over 4. 3 pi over 4, this is 4 pi over 4, so I have to be in quadrant 2. So that gives me a 45, 45, 90. So I've got 1, 1, root 2. This is negative, so x is negative 1, y is positive 1, r is positive root 2. Cosine theta is x over r. So cosine of 3 pi over 4 is going to be negative 1 over root 2. Can't be left with that. So cosine of 3 pi over 4 is going to be negative root 2 over 2. And then tan of 3 pi over 4, tan theta is y over x. And that gives us, my y is 1 over negative 1. So tan of 3 pi over 4 is negative 1. And I'm adding these. So it's negative root 2 over 2 plus negative 1. And we can't simplify that. So we're just going to leave it as negative root 2 over 2 minus 1. And then part D, the only thing that's different from this one is this little 4, which we'll have to apply when we get our calculations. But first things first, we have to do negative 9 pi over 4. So we're going this way, so just be careful with that. This is still 4 pi over 4, but it's negative, and this is negative 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 9 is going to be in this quadrant right here. So go all the way around. This is, excuse me, 45, 45, 90. So 1, 1, root 2, where this 1 over here is negative. So I have x equals 1, y equals negative 1, and r equals root 2. I have to find the cosine of negative 9 pi over 4. Cosine is x over r, and that's going to be 1 over root 2, or root 2 over 2. And then I need to find cosecant of negative 9 pi over 4, and that's going to be cosecant reciprocal of sine, so r over y, so that's going to be root 2 over negative 1 or negative root 2. So let's take this information and put it here. So it's going to be 4 times cosine, which is root 2 over 2. And then we are going to subtract negative root 2. So we can simplify right here. 4 over 2 is 2, so it's 2 root 2 plus root 2. So that's 2 plus 1. That gives me 3, so the final answer is 3 root 2. All right, a couple more to go. 12. Same idea. These ones look like they're quadrantal angles. So 270 degrees. This is 180, this is 90, this is 270. So it ends up down here. So this is the coordinate point 0, negative 1. So I have to do sine theta, which is y over r. Let's write out what everything is. X is negative 1. Y is, x is 0, my bad. Y is negative 1, r is always positive, and in this case it's positive 1 when it's a quadrantal angle. So my sine of 270 degrees is negative 1 over 1, or just negative 1. Cosine theta is x over r. So cosine of negative 180. Actually, we're doing different angles here. I forgot. So let's do it this way. I'm coming around here, and I've got this coordinate point, which is negative 1, 0. So in this case, x is negative 1, y is 0, r is 1. So cosine is x over r. Cosine of negative 180 degrees is going to be negative 1 over 1, so just negative 1. So both of them are just negative 1. So looking at what we have to do, it's going to be negative 1 plus negative 1, or final answer, negative 2. So that goes right here. And then cosine of 90, so that's going to be up here. And I'm going to do cosine of negative 90, so let me do that before I forget. So right here. So this coordinate point is 0, 1. This coordinate point is 0, negative 1. So cosine of pi over 2, remember it's x over r. My x is 0, my r is 1, so this is just going to be 0. Cosecant of negative pi over 2. So cosecant theta is the reciprocal of sine, so that's going to be r over y. In this case, x is 0, y is negative 1, and r is 1. So my r is 1 over negative 1, so that gives me negative 1. We're subtracting, so it's going to be 0 minus, be careful here, negative 1. So we get positive 1 as our final answer there. Okay, last question. So find the exact values of the remaining trig functions given cosecant. So cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so it's r over y for that one. And I've got to figure out which quadrant this is in. So this is negative, so cosine is less than, or cosecant is less than 0. And this is to do with sine. So remember, all star trig class. So if sine is negative, sine is going to be negative here and here. And then we're going to do cosine, cosine being positive. Well, cosine is positive here and here. So they overlap in quadrant 4. So that's where we're going to put our information. The radius, now this is negative 7 over 2, which makes sense because the y has to be negative, but the r is positive. So then we have to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And that's going to be a squared plus 4 equals 49. Subtract them, and we're going to get the square root of 45, which simplifies down to 3 root 5. So, x is 3 root 5. Y is negative 2, and r is 7. So we have to throw all this in here. So sine y over r, cosine x over r. Secant was the reciprocal of cosine, is r over x. Tangent is y over x, and then cotangent is x over y. So sine is going to be negative 2 over 7. Cosine is 3 root 5 over 7. Secant is 7 root 5 over 15. So let's talk about that one a little bit more. That's going to be 7 over 3 root 5. I'm going to multiply both top and bottom by root 5. That gives me the 7 root 5. Root 5 times root 5 is 5. 5 times 3 is 15. That's how we get that. Tangent is y over x. So that's going to be negative 2 over 3 root 5. Again, we're going to multiply by root 5, root 5. So that gives me negative 2 root 5 in the numerator. And root 5 times root 5 again is 5 times 3 is 15. And then if I take this one and flip it, I have 3 root 5 over negative 2. So I took this one to flip to make things easier.